today to present the draft regulation in the form of a ministerial decree, seeking to expand the provisions already in force under the immigration policy of 2012 containing immigration. In the existing policy, there's provisions to issue residency under humanitarian reasons so required. Permit issuance to support forming of the family unit or unification of the family is now expanded to include validation of family life for humanitarian reasons. The expansion addresses the requirements and conditions for applications to be submitted in instances in which one or both parents, having no legal status yet married, or formally living together and maintaining one household with minor children born and raised here in St. Martin. Children of age coming from such a family unit will now also be able to request residency under the new provisions. The formal partnership between parents must meet the requirements set in the regulation. Once this ministerial decree is signed by the minister, applications for residency can occur. So basically what it is, we have changed the way it had been done from the former minister, which I have seen to be an impediment with young people, children, born here in St. Martin, and finding it very difficult to acquire residency. The Chief of Staff made mention earlier that we have focused so often on the parents, on the grown folks, and neglected the children. This has changed. And it is something we started working on, and the minister can elaborate on it too as well, when he have tried his utmost and successfully got the individuals who have been away from their children back here in St. Martin. So today is a good day. It's a good day for St. Martin. It's a good day for St. Martin young people that were born in this country and have been struggling, trying their utmost to gain residency in this country. I use the word stateless. Many people say, oh, there's no stateless children in this country. I beg to differ. I will now have the minister, I will present it to the minister, but I would like the minister to also have a few words to say in relation to it.
Within the explanatory memorandum, it's clear that in pursuant of the provisions of Article 8 of the EVRM, a close reading of the article reveals that the scope covers a very wide area. At least the article was written with that intention. The right to the protection of private life and family life, home correspondence is contained in this article. Case law has not specified those interests protected by the article with any restraint. Thus, physical integrity, environment, and the right to participate in society have also been found to be part of the scope of the protection of this article. Thus, the European Court of Human Rights, in the Nimitz judgment, did not formulate an exhaustive definition of what is understood by the private life. Regarding to the concept of family life, the Marx judgment stated that no distinction should be made between a lawful and unlawful family. Single mother or father forms an equal family with her children. By extension, attention has also been paid to the concept of family life, within which the bond between family members is considered. Such a bond is assumed based on concrete contributions family members make in each other's lives. By listening to what I just read, it's basically just stated, we do not believe in separation of families. It's all about that bond. It is ridiculous and embarrassing that how our system is set up, that you can have a child born in this country. They did not decide that they were to be born here, and because their parents are undocumented, means they have to be undocumented. It also means there are situations as minister that I've already seen where both parents are documented, but because the child attends school on a friend side, they are not to obtain any residency, legal residency here. That should not be happening in our country. Our country is very diverse, it's very dynamic. To have the immigration reform that is so needed is coming. This is just one part of this reform. And as the now political party presenting this today, it shows you that we are serious with business. Based on the fact that we have had other incidents, which everyone knows about one of the cases, where I brought back a mother, reunited her with her children because of the lack of legislation. This legislation would curb this, for those type of things not to happen again. I would like to go forward and say a positive obligation to respect to the right to family life in immigration laws was also highlighted by the court. Decisions of expulsion and removal within immigration law must always be considered on the basis of the infringement of the protection of the right to family life with such a decision. The existence of a positive obligation to assume on the basis of a concrete balancing of general interests and interests of the individuals who enjoys protection. Against the background of the above, the factual situation concerning children of aliens born and raised here without lawful residence was considered, as I just mentioned. The phenomenon arose across the process of obtaining temporary residence permit was a lengthy and complicated one. Also, the fact that documentation for a specific period of time was considered valid. The documentation issued by agencies abroad had to be provided with apostilles, often resulted in the impossibility to being able to return a complete application with all documents. For example, we have wars in Israel, Jerusalem, wherever we have those wars, but we have those people also living in this country. How can you ask these people to get an apostille stamp on those documents and to be returned to St. Martin? Because the requirement is there that they need to have this, and because they cannot present it, they are turned down.
Esteemed citizens of St. Martin, today it is imperative that I provide you with an update on this Enya saga. Since my last appearance in Parliament, I have continued to carefully investigate the outline agreement and also explore alternative solutions. My intention was to go to Parliament again this week to provide answers to the questions posed. However, due to an error in the date provided by Parliament, which led to a misunderstanding, the meeting will be rescheduled. Aside from answering the questions, it is vital that I provide you, the residents of St. Martin, and specifically the St. Martin Enya policyholders, with an update. My main focus remains on two groups: the St. Martin policyholders and Country St. Martin. It is important to understand that St. Martin can cover and repay what is owed to its policyholders, specifically what they have contributed to their pension policy. The problem lies mainly with Curaçao, who cannot independently cover the obligations for their policyholders. If Enya were to go bankrupt, Curaçao would face significant problems, which could also impact the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin, and by default will impact St. Martin because of the joint monetary union. This is why, according to the Dutch, the continuation of Enya is necessary and was linked to the COVID loans. I would emphasize once again, I do not agree with the correlation of forced higher interest rates of a global pandemic loan being linked to saving a private entity. This is a prime example of how we are being penalized due to the joint monetary union. It raises a significant question that we at St. Martin may need to thoroughly investigate. Is this union truly in our best interest? One major concern in the outline agreement is something called the PEAK facility. To explain it simply, the PEAK facility is an indirect loan that would be used if the funds contributed by the countries are not enough to meet the financial obligations of this new foundation called the Resolution Fund. While St. Martin can meet its obligations, Curacao cannot. And under the current setup, both countries would share the loan. This construct will lead to St. Martin being tricked into covering costs that don't belong to us, which I, as Minister of Finance, cannot in good conscience allow. When I requested to exclude St. Martin from this peak facility arrangement and just let St. Martin pay the amount owed yearly to the St. Martin policyholders, I discovered more information. It turns out that under this signed agreement, St. Martin is not only covering its own policyholders, but also paying millions for the BES and Suriname policyholders. Initially, I was informed by my advisor, who was part of the initial discussions, that Curacao had stated that they would cover the Suriname policyholders. But when he asked for clarification, he was told by Curacao that only what's signed in the agreement matters, not what was promised or discussed. This shows how important it is to carefully review and comprehend any agreement before signing it. This is the exact reason I am taking my time to understand this agreement and why I have been stating that this is not in the benefit of country St. Martin. Additionally, St. Martin's share includes a significant amount to cover the yearly execution costs for the new foundation. It is important that St. Martin taxpayers know that based on this signed outline agreement, they're not only covering the St. Martin policyholders' expenses. In addition, the taxpayers of St. Martin will also be paying millions for the costs of policyholders of the BES and Suriname, and also the yearly operational expenses of a private company. While our own St. Martin companies are suffering, we are completely aiding and abetting a privately owned company, ENIA, with its primary benefits, taxes, and social premiums, employment being in Curacao, which I absolutely do not agree with. We posed many questions. We questioned why these costs are so high and what they cover exactly. We also questioned why the countries have to cover these costs. Are no costs being covered by the new ENIA or by investments made? We also asked about funds that were previously seized, wondering if they were used to reduce the debt owed by the countries and how exactly. These are a few matters that came to light after our request to be excluded from the peak facility and just commit to paying what is owed to the St. Martin policyholders on a yearly basis. These matters were discussed with the Central Bank technical team, who understood our valid concerns, and they agreed to draft an addendum to make St. Martin's obligations and commitments clearer, as I deem this very important to prevent future mix-ups and discussions on who agreed to pay what. Some of the proposed changes include, but not limited to, 1. Separating the peak facility so that St. Martin and Curacao each have their own, preventing any mixing of funds that aren't St. Martin's responsibility. 2. Excluding BES and Suriname policyholders, focusing solely on St. Martin policyholders. 3. Setting up a separate administration for St. Martin policyholders. 4. Clearly defining who qualifies as a St. Martin policyholder to prevent misunderstandings. 5. First rights to the purchase of Mullet Bay. 6. Outlining our yearly obligations in a new addendum, showing that St. Martin will not need to rely on the peak facility, which avoids additional interest costs. The only reason we would need to make use of the separate St. Martin peak facility would be if the central bank fails to provide the promised dividend. And lastly, with these adjustments, we won't need to budget 200,000 guilders per year, which we are now forced to do as we don't expect to use the peak facility. We have received this addendum from the technical team on Monday and are carefully reviewing it. As your Minister of Finance, I took an oath to act in the best interest of St. Martin and its people, allowing Parliament to approve the current agreement without doing everything possible to ensure it benefits St. Martin would be a disservice to our country. And that is something I cannot accept. The connection to the COVID loans, which I still oppose and find unfair, means we are being pressured because if we don't comply, we will face financial penalties with higher interest rates. However, I am determined to do everything in my power to ensure that we do not take on costs that have nothing to do with St. Martin, even if that means temporarily having a higher interest rate, as it would save the country of St. Martin millions in the long run. Remember when it was said that nothing can be changed? The proof is in the pudding. It can, has, and will continue to change to ensure the benefit and interest of country and the people of St. Martin.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
Enemies cover the truth in sugar and fool you into eating it.
It's a snap election, an election to give the people a chance again.
Let's talk about GB. Let's talk about electoral reform.
We want to make sure that the country goes back to the people.
When we pulled out the worst government in the history of this country, the reduction of property tax to increase business in St. Martin.
For righteousness, unity, and love empowerment.
We are in a situation again that we are heading to the polls.
Can come up. We have shown to be the people's choice.
The impact of this storm has revealed that some individuals and businesses underestimated the severity and did not take the proper precautionary measures to protect themselves. This situation highlights the importance of the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. This was my first experience in my capacity as Minister of TIAT, handling the measures for a storm, and I paid close attention to every detail. Last night, I personally reached out to key stakeholders in the maritime and hotel industry, as well as our 2 main ports of entry, the airport and the harbor, to gather an assessment of their experience during the storm. Today, I am here to provide a report and update on the outcomes of within our ministry's purviews. I have been in direct contact with all major marinas, and I'm pleased to report that none of them experienced any damages. Ile de Sol, Skyport, and Port-de-Plaisance all had yachts docked during the storm, but thankfully, everything remained secured and there were no incidents to report. Similarly, all went well with no hiccups at most of our major hotel properties and guest houses. Preliminary reports from JW Marriott, Hilton, Simpson Bay Resort, Oyster Bay, DV Little Bay, Princess Heights, Carl's & Sons, Sonesta Maho, Holland House all indicate that all guests are safe, and although more were stranded because of the closure of the airport, or most of them were stranded because of the closure of the airport. And speaking of the Princess Juliana International Airport, it was of course closed due to the approaching of the storm, but it was scheduled to reopen this morning at 7 a.m. The closure impacted 40 flights, leaving approximately 1,250 passengers stranded. Fortunately, there are no reports of damage except for some of the arrival tents left outside. This serves as a clear example of the importance of the 5 Ps and a reminder to not to underestimate the severity of storms like these. Regarding the harbor, initial assessments indicate that no infrastructural damage was made to the port. However, management has reported some minor cosmetic damages to the trees and shrubs, as well as 4 vinyl covers used to the temporary home porting building. They were already aware of the wear and tear of these covers and had ordered the replacements months ago, which are already underway. See the difference? The financial impact and the financial assessments from the harbor are still to be carried out, but according to management, gratefully, the financial impact is not expected to be significant, and the cruise call will be welcome this coming Friday as well. I join the management of Port of St. Martin in applauding the heroic actions of the maritime staff who answered to the call to assist in the rescue mission of the vessel MV Island Scout that was in distress during the passage of the storm. They worked in collaboration with the Maritime Affairs team to rescue 4 people from the vessel. With regards to the cargo, while sea conditions remain unfavorable, it can be assumed that the cargo operations will still be interrupted throughout today. The maritime manager is providing updates every 4 hours that can be shared with key stakeholders in anticipation of the resumption of the cargo insurance. And the earliest times, as soon as we get a feasible time that it can reopen, it will be announced. On a more somber note, my heart goes out to the vendors of the marketplace who was actually destroyed by the storm this morning. Most of the tents were destroyed. This morning, first thing, I toured the marketplace and was saddened to see the extent of the damage. We are already in the process of relocating the vendors to the pavilion, which was scheduled to be erected at the old administration building 2 days ago. Unfortunately, the storm caused some delays, pushing back our timeline. The original plan was to break ground for the new market construction yesterday, but this will now take place next week. We aim to relocate all the vendors by this coming Saturday. On a more positive note, I am pleased to share that I've had a productive telephone conversation this morning with my counterpart, Minister Cooper in Curaçao, early this morning. We may have reached a consensus on allowing Winair to increase its flights. Through a verbal reciprocal agreement, we found a middle ground. Minister Cooper is currently reviewing my proposal to extend the deadline to April 1st, 2025, which would allow and provide both Winair and Z-Air the opportunity to run holiday promotions. For St. Martin, it is essential that FAA agrees to allow Curaçao to oversee Z-Air's U.S. registration planes. Once we receive a positive response from the FAA, the date will be lifted. This morning, I sent a letter to Minister Cooper to reaffirm our discussions, and I'll await his decision on my proposal. And just a word of caution to all business owners with wooden billboards around the island. Most of you did not adhere to the call to take down these structures. This time around, I want to especially caution those with the billboards near the Princess Juliana International Airport. No action has been taken yet, but if God forbid anything happens to our beloved airport, please be aware that you will be held completely responsible for the damage at that airport. We simply cannot afford more setbacks with our airport. Remember the 5 Ps and prepare for what could happen if a hurricane strikes. I would like to end this message by saying, as we approach the peak of the hurricane season, it's natural to feel a mix of emotions and concern, uncertainty, and perhaps even fear. But remember, our community is strong, it's resilient and prepared, and we always prepared. We've weathered storms outside of this many times before, and we will again. And now is the time to take proactive steps to ensure our safety and the safety of our loved ones. Make sure your emergency kits are ready. Review your evacuation plans and stay informed through reliable sources. Check on your neighbor, especially those who may need extra help. Together, we can face whatever comes our way. While we cannot control the weather, we can control how we respond to it. Let's support each other, stay positive, and face this season with attentiveness. Thank you.
Are
you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
SXV, yeah, your social health insurances.
Provide $6 million Jamaican dollars for information, credible information, and intelligence leading to the arrest and charge of any suspect involved in the killing. We will provide $5 million for information aiding in the investigation, arrest, and charge of facilitators of this criminal act. We will give a reward for the provision of information and intelligence leading to the recovery of the firearms that were involved in this killing. We will provide $5 million for the supply of information and intelligence resulting in the securing of evidence, any form of evidence, against the gangs that were involved in this operation. This fund will be under the administration of the Ministry of National Security.
Agents of the JCF, JDF, and the major organized crime and anti-corruption agency MOCA were locked in discussions in Cherry Tree Lane, Clarendon, the scene of Sunday's deadly mass shooting. The state has decided to utilize the expertise of all three institutions to solve the crime perpetrated against the residents.
Our job here is to provide intelligence and investigative as well as cyber support to the investigations.
Even with the promise of high investigation under cyber techniques, intelligence is needed from residents.
Jamaica is a very small country, and this area, as wide as you might see it, it is also fairly small, and something like this doesn't happen without persons in the community having some knowledge of who's involved or how the attack took place. And so we're appealing to the residents in the community and also the wider Jamaica to support the security forces in bringing these animals to justice. We've created a number of anonymous tip line reporting mechanism. Certainly there is Crime Stop 311, and there's also the MOCA tip line 888 MOCA tip. We're asking persons to make use of these resources to help us in our investigations.
Heavily armed police and soldiers continue to patrol the community. The curfew imposed in the community is also helping to ease the minds of some residents.
The presence of the police is quite evident here. We've had 24 hours presence in the area since the residents are expressing their appreciation. We will continue to be in this space for as long as it takes for normalcy to return.
Nakinski Robinson, TVJ News.